Good morning. Welcome to week 6. This is Creighton Goodman, and today we'll discuss a dissertation by Paul Blakelock from May of 2006 titled Changing Trust, Individual Level Assessments of Political Legitimacy. Up front, the purpose of the dissertation is to measure the relationships between political trust and classroom influences, in particular, a college course in political science. Blakelock would like to advance our understanding of political trust by identifying and measuring factors that cause individuals to change their personal assessments of political trust. Thus, research is necessary to identify the contributing variables that address and identify diminished trust or loss of trust in government. The American National Election Studies, often referred to as ANES, or ANES or NES data from the 2000 election is used to determine individual assessments levels of political trust. There are a few secondary problem statements. First, college undergraduates exhibit little political knowledge and interest. Second, universities continue incentives directing scholars' efforts towards research and publishing in peer-reviewed journals. However, efforts to improve civic education are unnoticed. And third, the degree to which political science can foster civic education is somewhat unknown. This research was quantitative with a quasi-experimental design. The dependent variable is individual level changes in political trust as measured from an additive index. The additive index was 4 questions that originally came from a 2000 NES trust index. The independent variables were variables hypothesized to influence the individual level assessments of political trust, 11 in total, some of which include the respondent's level of formal education, the degree of the instructor's likability, etc. There's a control group of 18 cosmetology students taking classes on campus. There were 3 research questions. The first one is, does a student change their assessment of political trust after being exposed to political science education while in college? And if so, what are the social, demographic, or ideological characteristics associated with the likelihood of changing? The second question is, what are the catalyst factors or events within the classroom? And the third, is there evidence connecting political trust and political behavior, especially with regards to a decline in social capital? The whole survey administered consisted of about 60 questions, of which 4 of them were used to measure a respondent's trust in their government, and these were taken from the 2000 NES index. Below are the questions. Feel free to pause and read them if you'd like. The following are the delimitations and limitations of the study. First, the survey participants are younger and have incomes above the average SES household living in Harris County. Thus, the survey participants do not represent the general population. Also, the length of study was 1 semester. And lastly, student participation was tied to instructor participation. So if instructors decided not to participate, then the students could not include themselves in the study. In terms of limitations, the researcher could not control student absences throughout the course or control the different curriculum or subject matter being taught in the different political science courses. There are 6 hypotheses. I'm going to summarize these. The first one, as students progress through the political science course, their trust in government will decline. The second, the more education and political knowledge a student has, the more they will trust in the government they have. The third, if a student is already committed to a political party, then after learning about conflicting ideologies, they'll be more distrustful in the government. Fourth, low political trust will lead you to want to put limits on elected officials. Fifth, students' personal feelings towards their instructor will influence their political trust. And sixth, African American and Hispanics will show the largest increase in political trust as they progress through the political science course. Blakelock's lit review is fairly extensive. He reveals that there's a wide range of explanations for low levels of political trust in government. He includes linkages between morality and lawmaking as components of American history and its constitutional foundation. After a definition of legitimacy by Caldeira as being, quote, the moral authority to make binding public policy, the author states that it is difficult to agree upon a definition of what is moral, or it's difficult to determine a standard of morality, which is fair to say. He also includes Friedman, 1998, as saying the legitimacy of the law rests on the way it comes to be. If that's legitimate, so are the results, at least most of the time. And he also says that in modern democracies, voters rarely agree upon specific policy preferences, but they can agree upon the rules of the game. And that prior agreement legitimizes the outcome. I would challenge this with the recent 2016 presidential elections and the controversy between the electorate and the popular vote. But lastly, he suggests the crux of the legitimacy problem as being when citizens believe that they cannot trust their leaders, they become inherently less trustworthy themselves, and this creates a downward spiral in mutual trust. The methodology included a two-panel study of identical 60-question surveys. So one of the surveys was administered during the beginning of the semester, and the second survey was administered at the end of the semester. The survey looked at trust attitudes, policy preferences, and the students' interpretation of their experience in the classroom. Demographic questions included items like household income, ethnicity, etc. The survey consisted of several college campuses throughout the Houston metropolitan area. These were political science departments and the control group of cosmetology college students. Overall, there was 58% of surveys completed in the beginning and the end. So there was some attrition that was mainly due to absences of students on survey days or forgotten aliases between the pre and post test. A lot of results. Here's a list of them. I'm just going to review a few of them. Combined trust did not decline as students were exposed to political information that conflicted with their beliefs. Also, political trust for most of the respondents increased throughout the semester. Next, age, race, gender were unrelated to changing political trust. And students who viewed their instructor as likable became more trusting of government. Political trust is more subjective than previously thought, and personal happiness plays an important role. The more political science courses a student took, the more cynical they became. Trust is linked to what people believe the government should do for its citizens, and as political trust increases, support for illegal forms of political participation decreases. Research questions and hypotheses were satisfactorily considered. With regard to our understanding of bureaucracy in our readings, up to this point, we've concluded a legitimate bureaucracy should have cultural, ethnic, and values that are similar to the people it serves. Accepted political practices and trust are included in these values. The study suggests the level of political trust in government is relatively low. However, education can improve political trust. Thus, in combining the research with our understanding of bureaucracy, it appears a lack of trust in bureaucratic leadership can be combated with an increased level of political science education. In other words, in learning about the constitutional framework that's formed this nation, which is based strongly on moral principles, one can overcome individual levels of low political trust. Political trust is multidimensional. One of the dimensions for further study includes how an individual's level of happiness is associated with his or her level of political trust. I'm looking forward to your questions. Have a great week.